Today we're discussing some NHL trade rumors on the Calgary Flames. Will we actually see a bit of a shakeup in their core group of players before we head into NHL training camp or the upcoming season? We also want to talk about Max Domi and his potential trade coming from the Columbus Blue Jackets. A Patrice Bergeron extension appears imminent. We have some other signings to discuss, and the NHL announced today it's approving its first jersey ads. So we'll discuss how that's going to work as well coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to touch on here today. Let's talk first of all about the biggest breaking news I think you could say around the league today is that the Board of Governors has approved the first jersey ad. So of course we saw basically a small helmet decal introduced this past season as a form of advertisement for teams to be able to raise extra revenue. Most of those teams partnered with a lot of them that had the naming rights to their arenas and things like that. So for the most part, it's like I said, just a small little ad on their helmet. And now starting next year, we're going to get the first ad on jerseys. Now, obviously, this is not going to be very big. I've seen a variety of opinions already out there on social media today. I mean, if you look at the European leagues and how they operate, they're just peppered in ads, quite a few of them. And that, to me, gets a little bit over the top and quite ugly and hard to read, really. Like, you're not going to really notice that the advertisements, but there's so many of them. But this is only a 3-inch by 3.5-inch rectangular type ad. It would be like a patch, basically, right around the right shoulder area. So that's kind of in this area here is where it would go. Teams are allowed to start discussing with potential sponsors as of now, and it would be effective for next season. So, I mean, like I said, with the lost revenue from the pandemic and the shutdown, you know they're going to be trying to be creative to find ways to raise extra money. The helmet ads were a start. I'm not surprised at all this is coming. I honestly don't have any issue with it as well. I know some people seem to be okay with it. Some seem to be totally against it. And my only concern, I guess, is I hope it doesn't lead to a whole bunch of additional ads on the jerseys. This is going to be similar to what the NBA has done so far with their jerseys. So, you know, ultimately, I don't want them to be uglied up and peppered with ads over time, so I hope it doesn't get to that. At this point, we have no reason to think that it will. But as long as it stays small and somewhat discreet and it's a way for the teams to raise extra money, and to me, that's totally fine. If they want to be able to, you know, eventually raise the salary cap and, you know, continue the revenue rolling through, they have to get creative, and this is an easy way to do it. So we'll see. So ultimately, it's similar to the helmet ones, except, you know, 3 by 3.5 inches on the jersey on the right shoulder area. Not a big deal, but it could be a big money maker. So for me, if the league's going to make money, then it works for me. So ultimately, let me know what you think down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the ads going on the jerseys? Like I said, my only concern is that they don't eventually end up like the European teams and they're peppered. They can keep it small and tasteful, then it's totally good in my book. Now, we have a few signings to talk about here today. Nothing really too significant. We got a couple of two-way deals. First, we got Scott Sabourin going back to the Ottawa Senators. He played in the Senators organization 2 years ago, went to the Leafs last year. Now he's going back to Ottawa on two-way deals, mostly an American Hockey League player. Played a handful of NHL games. A guy who's not afraid to drop the gloves, be a tough guy when needed. So he's kind of one of those players that you really only bring him up to the NHL and insert him in certain situations. Otherwise, he's an American Hockey League kind of guy to kind of be a leader down there. And he's played pro hockey for a long time, so he's got experience, but not really going to help you on the NHL roster a whole heck of a lot. And even the few games he has played, like he gets the 4 to 5 minutes and handful of shifts, drops the gloves, and that's about it. Really. Not a big deal. Mason Shaw, Minnesota, come to terms on a 2-year, two-way contract. He was also an RFA that needed a new deal to get done. League minimum at the NHL level, so Shaw gets 2 years. Instead, it's a two-way deal both times. Another piece as well that's been making news here between YouTube and a few different websites that I've noticed today and caught wind of was the Montreal Canadiens. Even though they haven't officially confirmed this, seems to be confirmed by enough media outlets that I'm assuming it's accurate, but I guess we'll just correct this if it turns out not to be true. But it looks like the Habs are going to have the son of NHL player Tag Bertuzzi, will be apparently attending rookie camp possibly could be signed. He's 20 years old. He's played his 4 seasons in the, or 3 or 4 years in the OHL. Last year, he ended up playing in Slovakia. He's been passed over in the NHL draft. To be honest, this probably wouldn't even be news if it wasn't for who he was and his dad being a really prominent NHL player in the past. But otherwise, you know, there's bound to be a lot of these guys that are, you know, 20 years old, didn't get drafted. You know, most teams have 1 or 2 of them at their camps, rookie camps or training camps, etc. So it's not a huge deal. Like I said, it's just because of who his father is and what his name is. Otherwise, this probably wouldn't really even be getting a whole lot of attention. Last year, because of the lack of opportunities in North America, with the COVID shutting down so many leagues, he played over in Slovakia. When it comes to Bertuzzi, he seems like he's kind of built and structures his game similarly or like his father. To be honest, I had to do some research on him today. I had heard of him before. I knew Todd Bertuzzi had a son that was playing junior in the last few years, but I really didn't know a lot about him because he's never really made a lot of headlines. You know, like he's kind of been one of those guys that seems to have a lot of talent, but just doesn't seem to be able to put it together and get the results. Like I know there's some concerns over his consistent effort level. Just doesn't seem to bring it, you know, on a regular basis and whatnot. So we'll see if this leads to anything, but this is kind of one of his make or break it moments. Like he's been passed over in the draft, hasn't got a shot. This could lead to a contract. Maybe it's an AHL only deal. I don't really know, but like I said, given his the fact that his dad was a longtime NHL player, obviously has good DNA, so that means he's also cousins with Tyler Bertuzzi in Detroit. Things go, and if it leads to anything, which it very well may not. So we'll have to wait and see. Before we jump into the rumor section of today's video, though, I do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Now, before we jump into today's trade talk, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. I also want to take this moment just again to say thank you for all the recent support and remind you that we do have a merchandise sale going on right now. For example, these hoodies have been selling pretty good. I know I really love the one that I have here for myself. It's really nice and cozy. Certainly fits true to size as well. I will caution you that if you do order one, whatever your normal size is, at least for me, that's how it worked out. It'd be a great fit. So I'll put a quick thing here on the screen so you can see the promo code to get the latest sales on those if you're interested. By no means, don't feel obligated if you don't want to. Now, of course, into the rumor section of the video today, I want to start off with the Boston Bruins and Patrice Bergeron. Now, we know that Bergeron is quite likely going to remain his whole career in the Boston Bruins organization. That's pretty much a given at this point. He's entering the final year of his contract, and we've had word for the last little while that an extension is something that both parties are interested in and very well could be worked out, possibly even before the season starts, maybe as early as the next couple of weeks here, before training camp even rolls around. Reports today indicate that it's looking like it's probably going to be around 2 years. I mean, we don't know exactly how long Bergeron's going to play. Obviously, his health and injuries and all that will probably dictate to a degree. Obviously, team direction will also play a role too. It's probably going to be a very similar AAV to what he's making now. So somewhere in that $6 million range is likely where it lands. And he's probably going to do a short-term deal just because, for one, like I said, you don't know how his play is going to go. So he's not the kind of guy that wants to get paid to the moon here so that he can just grab as much money as he can. He wants to win. That's their goal in Boston, is to try to win another Stanley Cup before guys like him retire and move on. They have a lot of very team-friendly contracts with him and Marchand, Pastrnak, etc. They've kind of set a precedent that you need to leave money on the table to build the team stronger and have a chance to win there. So I don't suspect it's going to be huge. Even given today's dynamics and where he's at, he probably could justify a raise, but it's not looking like that's probably going to happen. If it is, it'd be really small. So we'll see how that works out, but it'd be nice for them to keep a hold of Bergeron here for a few more years, and then even after that, he could continue to play, depending on how he's doing health-wise and all that, so we'll have to wait and see. When it comes to the trade talk, a couple of players I want to touch on. One is Max Domi in Columbus. Now, of course, there's been a lot of trade rumors around him this offseason, and of course, the main reason we haven't seen a trade is that because he's injured. Now he's having surgery, or likely had surgery already. He's still hurt, still recovering is what I should say. And until he's recovered and likely gets medical clearance, a trade probably is unlikely at this point. But it could happen as early as maybe early in the season. I would suspect he's probably going to have to come back, maybe play a few games. So it's probably not something we'll see ahead of the season. But the most glaring need on the team, or one of the big ones right now, especially after the Seth Jones exit, would be maybe a right shot defenseman with a little bit more experience. I mean, they did bring in guys like Boqvist and Jake Bean. So they have some good young blue liners that they've brought in this offseason as well. But to have a more experienced right shot D there would be a preference. So if they do trade Domi, that's a real potential kind of player they'd be targeting in return. There's not a lot out there in the free agent market right now that they could bring in. I mean, they might opt to bring in somebody on a PTO to see. Maybe they'll go for, even a guy like, if you look at the defensemen that are out there, a guy like Sami Vatanen is still not signed. I mean, I don't know who else they would go after, but it just seems quite likely that Domi doesn't really seem to fit there. At least that's what many felt last year, that it's still quite likely, even with Tortorella gone and a new coach and some new systems here, that there's still a good chance he could get moved. And if he is, a defenseman is likely what they would target. Now, on to the Flames. A recent article in The Athletic by writer Haley Salvian talking about some potential shakeup here, which is something that many of us thought we would see this offseason. We really thought the Flames would shake things up because they've had a couple of consecutive years without really that success that they're looking for, that playoff success especially. And, Monahan, Gaudreau have been quiet in the playoffs. They lost Mark Giordano to Seattle in the expansion draft, so there is obviously some change in that regard, but not really the change that they were kind of looking for or hoping for. So she questioned whether or not they actually could long-term to try to make a series of moves, is what she said, to try to acquire Christian Dvorak. So Dvorak could be a target of the Flames to eventually come in as a top six center. But of course, moving Monahan would be part of that. And of course, he comes with a heftier contract on a down season. It's going to prove challenging. But to me, Sean Monahan's a former 30-goal scorer. I know there was a lot of talk earlier about maybe the Senators being a team where he could end up. He's got ties to Ottawa. Played his junior hockey there. So he's very familiar with the city and all that. So he could be, a good fit there. The only issue, with Monahan, to me, is the contract. It's not that a lot of teams wouldn't consider him as a player. It's just, for what he's getting paid, based on how he's played lately, it's just hard to justify. The Flames might have to eat some money on that. I don't know if that's a possibility that they could, if they wanted to add something to it, that maybe they could swap Monahan for Dvorak. The Coyotes aren't going to do that straight up. They're going to want some extra pieces to make it worth their while, and I don't really know that the Flames are going to want to take too much from their future to do that. I mean, if you look at what they have in the prospect pool, they're not going to want to add a whole lot because they don't really have a ton there that's really exciting. They're not going to trade Dustin Wolf. He's their future, or hopefully the future number one goaltender. Young guy like a Dylan Dubé on the team, would they include him? Preferably not. So I don't know what they would, how they'd go about this. But obviously Monahan is a player, according to her, that she can see being traded. Ideally sooner than later, ahead of training camp, if possible, to shake things up. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about a potential Johnny Gaudreau extension in Calgary. Hasn't been done yet, so until it's done, it's not done. Is that what they say? There's some, especially like Eric Francis of Sportsnet, has been convinced for years that Gaudreau was going to bolt to Calgary the second he has an opportunity to. But he's always said the right things to make you think he wants to sign long-term and stay, make it his home, and try to continue trying to win in Calgary. But yet, we haven't really seen that yet. So I guess we have to wait and see. But to me, at this point, either Monahan or Gaudreau, to shake things up, to one of them to be traded, makes a lot of sense. I understand why Monahan would be the preferred guy to go. It's just going to be difficult. Now, the other thing that Salvian mentioned in The Athletic about Monahan would be that she finds it very doubtful that he would either, combination of the Flames and him, that he's likely wouldn't be re-signed and staying beyond his contract. Now, he's got one more year longer than Gaudreau, so, it would be this year and next year. But if they feel like he's likely not going to stay and that he's obviously struggling and could use a fresh start, it makes a lot of sense if they can move him. And just where are you going to send, a $6.7 million contract on a player that's been struggling and had some injuries and, production's down? It's not simple to do. So we'll have to see how this works out for Calgary. But according to her, a shakeup ahead of the season is still possible, at least one significant move. And it could lead to them getting Dvorak if he's still on the market when they can kind of work things out. So we'll have to see how everything goes in that regard. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments. We'll discuss further. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.